Good morning, everyone. I'm Charlie Fink with Ted Schilowitz. It's This Week in XR, September 3rd, 2021. We have with us a very special guest this morning, Ori Inbar, who is the CEO of AWE and has been a great friend to me as I started to write about the business over 6 years ago. So thanks again for that, Ori, and thanks for jumping on with us this morning.
It's awesome to be here with you guys. Good to see you, everybody.
Yeah,
So sorry, Ted, go ahead.
Go ahead. I said Ori has been a good friend to us and to the movement and to the understanding of where we're all headed. As for those that might be watching the video part of this podcast, you can see his museum of XR behind him, just like I have mine behind me. We've been longtime participants and speakers at AWE, and look forward to whatever happens this November. I guess we still have to see, but it's all coming together, I guess.
Absolutely. It's happening. That's all I can say at this point. It's happening and it's in person.
I will be there. I will be there for my 7th AWE. Isn't that amazing?
I am planning on being there as well. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
So, I started teaching this week and everybody is super masked up. You're supposed to mask while you're lecturing, even if you're socially distant. I mean, and people are, very much leaning into this. So I thought that was interesting. Happy to be back in the real, though. It's much easier to lecture when you can make eye contact with people,
sure.
As opposed to speaking into the void, although apparently I'm very good at speaking into the void as right now. So it being Labor Day weekend, there wasn't a whole lot of news this week. There were a bunch of product launches and app launches and so forth. But the big news, of course, was rumors started on Friday and were confirmed on Monday that ByteDance had bought Pico, which is a VR headset maker, the number 3 in the world, with Sony, PlayStation, and Oculus Quest ahead of it, and HTC a bit behind. So there are a lot of players in this field, but Pico significantly is leader in the Chinese consumer headset market for at least untethered VR headsets. And it also has been making inroads in the US more slowly, perhaps, in the enterprise sector, because it can be managed like any device on a corporate network. Facebook is catching up there, so I don't want to completely dismiss their competition. But the Pico is a well-regarded headset stuffed with features. It's more expensive than the Oculus Quest, but it is a much more substantial piece of hardware, at least in my opinion. It's got eye tracking. I mean, it's really nice. So anyway, of course, what's significant here is one big social media company acquires VR and clearly has committed to this idea that VR will be social and multiplayer. And it seems like TikTok is saying the same thing.
Right. When you look at ByteDance, who owns TikTok, as a giant presence in the social media sphere these days, albeit sort of popping up much quicker than Facebook has, but completely dominating cultural, relevance now for a certain sector of youth. And the fact that they recognize what Facebook had recognized. Now you have two companies that largely have the same goal sets, right? Of grabbing people's attention, putting them inside these social connected worlds, both making a play to live inside something beyond a traditional screen. And that is relevant for us.
What do you make of it, Ori?
I think that it's huge. And if you look at the social media market, none of them is able to ignore AR or VR at this point. Every single one of them has either delivered products or made acquisitions. And another one that happened recently is Discord acquiring Ubiquiti 6, which is another huge development which we're not talking about enough. But yeah, I mean, I think at this point, it's what users are expecting when they're communicating with each other, and those players are recognizing that it's going to be a key driver for their future growth.
Obviously we don't know as much about ByteDance as we know about Facebook And also Facebook, of course, Mark Zuckerberg has been very vocal about VR. And they talk about AR all the time as well, but we haven't gotten that same, is there a Mark Zuckerberg over there at ByteDance we should be listening to?
It's a really good question. I guess we'll see what comes of this over the next few months. And you mentioned AR, Ori, you are obviously very, very bullish on mixed reality in all of its forms. So you must have an opinion on where you believe both Facebook is going now, what ByteDance might be doing, and others in the space around what is beyond the form factor of the headset that's selling in a commercial vein, much to the tune of some of the prototype devices that you have behind you there, that you and I, Charlie, spend a good amount of time inside these things, trying to glean out what might be coming next, right? Where is it actually really going beyond just the cover your face with a box concept? So I think you probably have lots of opinions on that.
I do, yeah. I guess, first observation is that initially, when you look at some of the social VR tools out there, they've been a bit more advanced than kind of social collaboration with AR. And that's just because it's a little easier to do in VR. But I think, the ultimate goal is for us to stay in our real world and be able to collaborate with other people remotely. So it's going to be some form of combination of VR and AR. And you already see some of that in workrooms, right? Where some of the real world kind of peeps into the virtual world and allows us to still be connected to what we're doing in the real world. Yeah, although I have a lot of reservations about kind of their Facebook's approach in a sense that, the whole idea with spatial computing is that we want to start doing things that are not possible to do in front of a laptop or a 2D computer. So I would always look for those kind of new things that you can't do. Whereas, continuing to write on your keyboard and kind of interacting with the 2D screen is kind of defying some of that purpose. So I think we're still seeing a lot of skeuomorphism, where some of the old user experience techniques from 2D computing is being adopted for 3D. And sometimes, it helps with the adoption of new technology, but for the most part, it's kind of, again, defying the purpose of why we're even doing spatial computing.
Right. For those that might not be aware of what Ori is talking about, is the idea that in the Facebook system, the Horizons workspace system, you can park your laptop on your desk and it will map the keyboard, see the actual laptop screen. It will link to the laptop screen. And the resolution of the Quest 2 is actually good enough that it's actually a pretty good experience. There's an interesting yin and yang there, because I actually think that, and you mentioned it, it is a way to onboard people, because if you look at like a lot of the gaming experiences in VR, they have a metaphor to something you do in the real world, right? There's bowling, there's golf, there's, shooting things, there's archery, there's things that essentially map into a simulation world. And then from there are more experimental things that, like, stuff you couldn't do yourself, like go to Mars and experience anti-gravity and things like that. But very much things start with the idea of, I would do this in the real world if I had blank, blank, and blank. And since I can simulate it, I can do it better. There's a lot of workout experiences that allow you to do boxing and training in virtual reality now. So it's interesting to get both you and Charlie's perspective on that from my standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, listen, adding the access to the keyboard is something that, we have experienced. We use spatial for our team meetings. And one of the big complaints of the team is that they cannot take notes.
Right.
So having a keyboard is, of course, helpful. But, having all these floating screens, so, kind of taking your laptop screen and extending it to multiple floating screens right now, what's the point of that? Let's try to make it spatial so that it adds more value than just looking at screens.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting that, Facebook had investing in Oculus at this point, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, is really taking a long view in this investment.
Very much.
Right? They've sunk billions of dollars. They continue every year to put hundreds of millions of dollars into it, if not billions. 20% of their engineering staff is working on spatial computing. So one of the things that you have to be impressed by is Facebook's commitment. I mean, you guys have worked, you know how big companies work, Ted, right? I mean, nobody is there for 6 years. No strategy is sustainable for 6 years, particularly at that level of investment. And in fact, I'm not sure Google would have the nerve to do what Facebook is doing.
I mean, they have discontinued a bunch of products already in the space.
Yeah, Google seems to be throwing XR overboard at the moment.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
then so I guess I don't know, do you think ByteDance has the will
Has the
to do
wherewithal?
what Facebook is doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. My instinct is probably not to the robustness and the stick-to-itiveness of Facebook, right? They will likely take on the this is a moment shiny object and they'll find their way. I think you're right. I think, you know, for all the critique that we can find around Facebook and the various challenges of a company that has grown so large and been so dominant in so many ways, their deep and long commitment to the idea of this is something that's really impressive. And I guess whether they had the foresight to realize it or not, the fact that they call their product Horizons is pretty interesting, because it is the horizon that they're constantly working towards, right? It doesn't really even fully exist today. It only fully exists in pieces and parts, right? This kind of infancy stage that we often, you and I talk about, takes a 10-year period to find really, you know, true adoption and true change in the use case. But the three of us do spatial meetings as well as Zoom and FaceTime and Microsoft Team meetings in tandem, right? So we're kind of the early adopters of those horizons, because I do that. I was actually curious, Ori, if you've done the Microsoft Mesh sessions when we talk about mixed reality, because I've done a few of those with some of my friends at Microsoft. And while they're still using like the alt space level cartoon character avatars, the idea of it living in a true mixed reality see-through world as opposed to a pass-through VR headset world is remarkably special to me. Like, it's really interesting when you feel like you're in your world and you've brought other people into your living room or your workspace, and you can share things, and it feels different than the VR thing. So I think the horizon of what Facebook may be doing with mixed reality could, you know, lead us there as well. Just because I
really like some of the demos I've seen of Mesh. I didn't have a chance to actually participate in a real meeting there, so looking forward to.
We should do a session together because it's really interesting. You will find it interesting.
Yeah, but it's you're right. I mean, the Microsoft vision in that regard has been, I think, more advanced in many ways. I mean, if you look at some of the work from Microsoft Research from, I think, like 6 or maybe 7 years ago, they already had this idea of, you know, I'm at work, I'm a daddy, and I can connect with my daughter at home as if we're in the same room. Nobody thought at that point that it will have to be in reverse, where you're actually at home and interacting with people at work. That's kind of the reverse. But I think the idea that, you know, you want to integrate virtual content and real environments around you is something that is probably going to drive this kind of interaction in the future. So,
Ori, we try and keep the podcast to a half an hour, and I want to pivot now to your work, and in particular to AWE in the Real, which is coming up in 7 weeks. I can't tell you how excited I am about that. What are the emerging themes you think we'll be talking about at AWE this fall?
Well, first, you know, you're not alone. There's a lot of excitement around just the idea that after almost 2 years, we'll get together in person for the first time. And as much as we're all kind of, like you said, Ted, early adopters of virtual interactions and remote collaboration, nothing beats in person. So we see a lot of excitement there. We have, you know, already 300 speakers lined up, some of the best folks around the industry, and about 200 exhibitors will be there in person, which will be, again, first time after almost 2 years that will.
How many exhibitors did you have in 2019?
It was about 250. So I think because many international companies do not travel, we may lose some of those. But, you know, for every European or Asian company that has restrictions to travel, we have a new company that is born in the US that is eager to come and show themselves to the community. So
are you going to be live streaming it so international people can see it live?
Certainly. I mean, there will definitely be it'll be a hybrid event, so there will be a virtual component. In fact, a lot of the content that will be captured from these 300 speakers is planned to be streamed over a period of time. So, I mean, we've been looking at this idea that how to extend the benefits of the in-person event throughout the entire year, because there's so much work that goes into those events from, of course, from our team, but also from exhibitors and speakers. And then it's poof, it disappears after those 3 days. So we're kind of working on a new platform that will enable to have kind of an always on action in the XR community for watching content, for networking, for doing smart matchmaking between people in the industry, whether they're advanced or newbies. So that's kind of one of the big things. The other thing is that I think in 2020 it felt like this industry has entered the mainstream. You could say it's just about to enter, or it's already entered, or it's already there. But I think that will be kind of reflecting in the event. It's not going to be about people talking about ideas and concepts so much, but actually customers, real end users, talking about how they're adopting it and how they're improving their businesses across the board, across maybe 20 different industries. So in that sense, I think it's a huge change from what we've seen since 2019. And the other thing is that when it comes to content creation, I think we're at a point where there are millions of creators in AR and VR out there. So we're trying to kind of give a stage to those people so that more and more people can actually join. And the friction or the kind of the onboarding that typically takes quite a bit of time to get into the world will be shortened significantly. And eventually, everyone out there will be able to participate in creation and consuming of content.
Do you want to use this moment, this platform, as it were, to talk about how you're going to institute some safety protocols and things around protecting people in a large-scale gathering like this? Because I think a lot of people are probably have a lot of desire to go to the event, but are a little nervous about how everybody's going to stay safe.
For sure, yeah. I mean, that's very high on our priority list to make sure that everybody feels safe. So it's of course, we're following the U.S. health guidelines, but it looks at this point that will require people to be vaccinated or at least have a test in the last few hours, I guess 48 or 72 hours. And we're probably going to have to wear masks, which sucks, but that's, I think, inevitable at this point. So unless you're on stage in front of a video, you're probably going to have to wear masks when you talk to people. But I think, again, just getting in the same room with all these, smart people, the thought leaders, the people that implement it, people that are innovating with new technologies, hardware and software, it's just going to be incredible to be in the same room with these people and hear their thoughts.
Yeah, I just just to get back to the question that I asked. I mean, are we going to be talking about remote work? Are we going to be talking about AI and convergence? Which of the categories do you think will be highlighted and generate the most interest?
Yeah, well, as you know, AWS has always tried to accommodate the entire ecosystem. Again, from hardware to software, from component providers to solution providers, and again, end users, creators, developers. So we're trying to, we've created 8 tracks that should provide interesting content and interesting speakers for anyone in this industry. And yes, like I said, remote collaboration, training and remote assistance will probably be some of the biggest topics. But if you look at, we looked at kind of our the incredible number of submissions of talks that we've received and kind of try to see where's where are most of the submissions happening. E-commerce, retail, advertising are of course huge right now. Again, it's another area where I don't think there's a retailer or an e-commerce provider that can ignore AR technologies. And also those who are creating the tools to make it easier for them to adopt it are going to be there as kind of a big highlight. AI and XR, like you said, I mean, we've said that many times again, over and over again, that these two technologies will be tied to the hip. and in the future, maybe we
yeah,
won't
along
even
with
be able to say
computer
something
vision,
different.
object recognition, machine learning, right? It's all converging, and the one thing we don't know is the final form factor.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, I mean, so these, many technology-oriented talks and sessions and exhibitors will show a lot of AI being integrated into XR just to make it better, to make the experience better, to make it smarter,
Yeah,
and more, basically, teaching computers to understand the real world in a better way than they have been able to before.
Charlie, when you talk about form factor, this is one I would love to get Ori's take on. I am firmly convinced there is not one form factor for mixed reality that will lead all. I am wholly convinced that we'll take the same track as compute and screens have taken, where we have, in a typical modern working and social environment person, they have 5 or 6 different screens and different screen technology and use cases in their daily lives, right? They have their mobile screen, potentially they have their wearable watch style screen, they have their laptop and tablet screen, they have their desktop screen, and they have their, what I'll call, living room entertainment screen. They're all born of the same technology base line, right? Some sort of advanced pixel screen, but have different use cases and different form factors. Do you think that the track will live almost exactly mirrored to that in mixed reality, where you'll have different devices and there will be of such a cost-effective nature that you can have different devices, wearable devices, that some will be more entertainment and fully immersive oriented, some will be more light touch, literally wear on the street and be comfortable and fashionable. Do you have a sense of that? Because clearly I have some opinions on that, but you do this even more than I do.
So my take, since I started kind of writing about the future of, especially smart glasses, I think it became clear that you're not going to have initially one device that does it all. It takes quite a bit of time, a few cycles in a new technology wave until you reach that point. So initially, I think it's going to be, you're going to use it for certain tasks. So, at work, you may use your device that is really geared specifically for the task at hand. And maybe at home, whether it's for entertainment or for talking with friends, it may be a different device. So I agree. I mean, it's going to be a collection of different things. I mean, maybe, people like us will have, a wall of devices that you may use for different things. Most people will have probably just, 1 or 2 initially that they use for, again, maybe work and at home. And again, it's not going to be a device that you wear all day. I think that's pretty clear. That's going to take quite a bit of time until the transition from, from the mobile device, from our laptops, from our TV screen will move into kind of one unified media device.
Agreed.
Well, we're headed toward the end of our half hour. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about, Ori? AWE is doing a lot of stuff that is not the AWE conference, as you mentioned. You guys have a rapidly developing education program that I've been delighted to be involved with. What are the other initiatives that AWE is pursuing? I need AWE Nights, right, is another thing.
That's right. Yeah. So today, especially with the acceleration driven by the pandemic, we've started to offer way more things that are possible to experience online. So yeah, the AWE Academy was launched this January. We have a bunch of courses that are out there for XR professionals. So not just for the technical folks like you see out there, but for XR managers at corporations, which, by the way, is a new title that we're starting to see.
Wow.
And that's a demonstration of the adoption among Fortune 1000 companies and small and medium businesses. So that's definitely a big part of it. Where else were we going with this?
Talk about AWE Nights, Charlie. You mentioned that.
Oh yeah.
So
the academy, the AWE Academy is kind of a big part of it, in the sense that we're allowing people to learn a new skill, to kind of close some of the gaps that businesses and professionals have out there. Also the on-nights. On-nights are meetups that, I started the first meetup in 2008, which was probably the first AR meetup in New York City. And since then, we have grown to today about 24 cities around the world that are meeting on a regular basis, now mostly online. So it's actually enabling people from around the world and also speakers from around the world to be able to participate in those meetups. And that's kind of part of our incredible archive of videos of talks and meetups that we have on our YouTube channel. Probably the largest collection of videos out there with over 2,000 videos. So we're kind of trying to find some of those hidden gems in the database or the YouTube channel from the past years and make it more accessible to people out there. So that's another big focus. And also we started to put more focus on just content in general. Of course, we have the Spatial Weekly, which is a newsletter we send every Friday. But we're also starting to aggregate content from different people that write cool stuff in this industry, and podcasts. Actually, would love to feature your podcast in the future once we have kind of that always on platform up and running.
And so people, it's awe.org, right?
No, awxr.com is the website.
So that's the hub for all these things that people can do.
That should be kind of the entry point. We will add, the idea is to, like I said, to accommodate different audiences as they try to either enter this world or just learn more, go deeper. So we're kind of trying to provide this content in a way that is geared for, creators, developers, startups, investors, and all these other audiences that we see kind of joining this industry.
Well, it'll be great to reconnect in 7 weeks. I'm looking forward to seeing you and everyone else in the reel. So that's our show. Ori, thank you again for coming. You and I used to see each other all the time, especially when we were both in New York. So yeah. I have to say, it's great to see you virtually. It's a small taste of things to come.
Should we offer a discount to your listeners for AWE?
Sure. I'm sure that there are probably many people who are listening who are planning to attend the show.
Fantastic. So I'm glad to introduce a 20% discount to podcast listeners here. It's AWE USA 21, 20 off. And I'll be happy to share the code.
Well, we have very few listeners actually on YouTube. But AWE USA 21 20 off. Got it. AWE USA 21 20 off.
And by the way, there's still time to submit as a startup to the startup pitch competition, to the Augie Awards. Still a few more days left. So check out the website, see if you want to join in some way and
vote on the Augie Awards.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much, guys. It's been awesome to be here.
Thank you.